Luka Doncic has been having some of the best performances that the game of basketball has ever seen. It seems like every season he's getting better and better by adding new moves to his arsenal and mastering his already lethal skills. What's fascinating about Doncic, though, is that he can beat you at his own pace. He's never in a rush and he's never caught off guard. This is even more impressive when we consider the fact that Luka only turns 24 years old in late February 2023. Luka's had a lot of amazing performances, and when we say a lot, we mean almost every game of his has been one for the ages. On January 12, 2023, Luka tallied 35 points, 14 rebounds, and 13 assists for the Mavericks to get the double overtime victory against the Los Angeles Lakers. And honestly, this is not even a standout game for him anymore. Since in the 2022-23 season so far, Luka's been averaging 34.2 points, 8.9 rebounds, and 8.7 assists on 50% shooting from the field. Basically, whenever he produces a performance like this against the Lakers, it can be considered a regular day at the office. So what is considered to be a standout performance by Luka Doncic standards? On December 28, 2022, the Mavs played the New York Knicks. The Mavs lost the first three quarters, but managed to get back late into the game and even won in overtime. But this explanation doesn't do justice for what happened during the game. Get your popcorn ready because it's a long list of records that Luka set that night. As the Mavs trailed by 9 points with 33.2 seconds left, only some Luka magic was capable of getting them back into this game. In the last 33.2 seconds of the game, Luka Doncic had 6 points, 2 offensive rebounds, 1 assist, and a steal. With 4 seconds left, the Mavs were down by 2 points, but Luka only had 1 free throw opportunity. So he intentionally missed the free throw, of course, but he managed to get the offensive rebound after a deflection, and even made an acrobatic putback to tie the game at 115 apiece. He wasn't great only for that last 30 seconds, but the entire game, as he finished with, 60 points, 21 rebounds, and 10 assists. So let's see what records did Luka set that night. First things first, Luka has now the highest scoring game in Dallas Mavericks history, passing Dirk's 53 against the Rockets, a record that stood for almost 19 years. The Dallas Mavericks are now the only team in history to trail by 9 points in the last 30 seconds and pull off a win in the same game. Luka is now the youngest player to record a 50, let alone 60-point triple-double with 23 years and 302 days. This record was held by the late Wilt Chamberlain for almost 60 years. Luka is now the 5th youngest player in NBA history to drop a 60-point bomb in a single game. This is truly one of the best performances ever witnessed on a basketball court. Before the Mavs played the Spurs on the last day in 2022, Spurs head coach, the legendary Greg Popovich, jokingly made a bold claim that his players would be able to defend Luka that night. "We're gonna hold Luka under 50, quoted. Well, it was all business for Luka, and a tough night for Coach Pop, as Luka finished the game with 51 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists. It was a double loss for Pop and the Spurs, because if they held Luka to 49 points, they would have won. This way, with Luka's 2 extra points, the game finished 126-125 in favor of the Mavs. This is the 8th highest scoring performance that someone's had against the Spurs. This was Luka's 3rd 50-point showing in the last 5 games, and led the Mavs to their 21st win of the season. Much needed in an ultra-competitive Western Conference, where the difference between the Mavs' 4th spot and the Lakers' 13th is only 5 wins. Luka Doncic is known to step up his game even further when it comes to the playoffs. He's 2nd in point per game in the playoffs, only behind the greatest of all time himself, Michael Jordan. When the 2022 playoffs rolled around, Luka had to miss the first 3 games against the Utah Jazz in the first round. Dallas managed to lead 2-1, and with Doncic back for the remaining games, the Mavs won 4-2, and moved on to the next round to face the Phoenix Suns. Luka played great in the first 2 games as usual, but the Suns managed to win both, getting a convincing 2-0 series lead that had them and their fans filled with confidence that they're going to the Western Conference Finals. But the one who laughs last, laughs best. The Mavs managed to get the series back to 2 wins apiece, but the Suns were out for blood in Game 5, destroying the Mavs by 30 points. This is where things got even more interesting. The Suns were enjoying the lead so much, they started mocking Luka. The Luka special, Devin Booker yelled after selling a foul. Booker and Chris Paul started trash-talking Luka left and right, but he remained calm. "Everybody acts tough when they're up," Doncic said. But he forgot to say that the Suns wouldn't be up for much longer. In Game 6, Luka led the Mavs to a 27-point win, and gave us one of the best memes when he just stared at Devin Booker with a stone-cold look. Game 7 was in Phoenix, and everybody was ready to watch this thriller ending to a playoff series. Well, it didn't take long to figure out who was going to win, as this time the Mavs won by 33. In the last 2 games alone, the real Luka special was delivered, as in total he scored 68 points, grabbed 21 rebounds, and dished out 12 assists. For the entire series, he averaged 32.6 points, 9.9 rebounds, and 7 assists. He led players from both teams in these three stats and was without a doubt the best performer in the series by far. Luka alone had more points than the Mavs' second and third leading scorers, Jalen Brunson and Spencer Dinwiddie combined. He outperformed Booker in all but one game, showing him what a true Luka special is. Despite his first game against the Pelicans being a rough one, Luka has flourished against them ever since. In 16 games between Doncic's Mavs and the Pelicans, Luka's managed to record 4 triple-doubles, 6 30-point games, and 2 40-point performances. His performances against New Orleans have been enough to reach 11 wins in the 16 clashes. His best performance was on February 17, 2022, when the Mavs almost blew a huge lead, entering the fourth quarter being up by 24. CJ McCollum's 38 points weren't enough to get the win, as Luka scored 49 and added 15 boards and 8 assists, just in case. Luka's 29.9 points per game average against the Pelicans is his fourth highest out of any teams around the league. Without a doubt, the team that always gets Luka to play his best basketball, though, is the Los Angeles Clippers squad. They were the first team that Luka ran into in his first playoff appearance, but they've met many times in the regular season as well. Even though Luka has a losing record versus the Clippers, 6-8 in the regular season and 5-8 in the playoffs, the game's outcome was always outshined by his performance. In the regular season, Luka has his second highest points per game average against any NBA team, with 32.5. In the playoffs, this average levels up to 33.5. In the regular season, Luka has had a 51-point performance against the Clippers, his highest, but also 3 40-point games and 3 30-point games in their 14 matchups against each other. As we all know, the real fun happens in the playoffs though. And in this case, Luka's first ever playoff game was a staggering 42 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists performance. But even that wasn't enough to get the win over the Clippers in Game 1. So in Game 4, he had to finish with 43 points, 17 rebounds, and 13 assists just to get a narrow 2-point victory to even the series. Luka's best performance in the playoffs against the Clippers was in Game 7 of the 2021 Western Conference first round. He finished the game with 46 points, 7 rebounds, and 14 assists. But that still wasn't enough to get him and the Mavs to Luka's first time in the second round of the playoffs. Despite all these amazing performances, the Clippers seem to escape as the victors when it matters most. But if Luka keeps this pace up, it's a matter of time to see things going in his favor. Another team that Luka seems to enjoy playing is the Warriors. They've met 15 times in his career, and Luka and the Mavs have a dominating 11-4 win record against them. But once again, just like the Clippers, the Warriors are victorious when it matters most. The two teams faced each other in the 2022 Western Conference Finals, and unfortunately for the Mavs, they would have to wait for their first finals appearance since 2011 just a bit more, as the series finished with a gentleman's sweep in favor of the Warriors. The Warriors focused their entire defensive scheme on Luka Doncic and managed to get his percentages down a bit. Players like Luka can't be completely neutralized, so despite all Golden State's efforts, he still managed to put up historic numbers, finishing the series with 32 points, 9.2 rebounds, and 6 assists. Luka even had 2 40-point games on great shooting, but both ended up in a loss. In the regular season, Luka has been averaging 30.2 points, 8.4 rebounds, and 7.4 assists in his 15 matchups against the Warriors, with his best performance being his last, where he ended up with 41 points, 12 rebounds, and 12 assists. Just enough to get the Mavs over the edge and end up with a 3-point win. Luka's performances are something to behold, and he's still just 23 years old. There's going to be more where that came from. As time goes on, Luka seems to get more and more unstoppable. Teams are trying everything they can possibly think of to stop him, but it just seems to rarely work. So far in the 2022-23 season, Luka has scored less than 30 points in only 9 out of 39 games he's played in, and the Mavs have finished with a 2-7 record in those games. So it seems Luka's numbers are very much needed to get the Mavs in winning form. With all these great numbers, Luka is second in the MVP race behind Nikola Jokic. But if the Mavs get a seed or two higher than what they currently sit in, Luka can no doubt be the NBA's most valuable player for the 2023 season. Let's just hope that he stays healthy, so we can enjoy as much of his games as we possibly can.